This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
It's 11:07 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast, and you're on Ask a Rabbi.
And this is Rabbi Shafir Loeb for Congregation Eitz Chaim, your Jewish home on the Treasure Coast. So, Good Friday. Hello, everyone. Have a happy Friday. It is a beautiful Friday out there again. Some needed rain that's been happening, and I brought with me, for those who can see it,
I
isn't
like
that
it.
cool? That's called a fairy lily, and obviously it's pink.
Very
That's one of the
lily.
ones. That's from
Nice.
our plant sale. So,
How'd that go?
It went very well. You know, everybody was concerned because we were in a different room at the community center, and it was, of course, Memorial Day weekend, and we did quite well. The next one is going to be at the temple. We're going to try to expand to 2 days, which we can't do at the community center. Whoops.
Ooh, that's
Hello.
cool. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
So, and I'm trying very hard. Technology is not helping me.
Zuckerberg, your technology sucks on Facebook. Oh.
Well, we're trying to share it to a page, so I'm trying to get it over to.
Oh, my.
And of course, the settings on the phone are always so much fun.
Oh, brother. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're on YouTube, so you got it.
There you go. We're on YouTube. We're on Digital 1590, and
That's
anyone
it.
is welcome to call in to 772-340-1590.
Yeah, no matter what country you're in, feel free.
Yeah.
Give us a call.
Yeah, give us a call anywhere. You're welcome to do that. So,
You figure, with IRSC basketball in the national tournament, we had 62 countries listening.
wow, that's kind of cool.
That is, you
But
never know.
Yeah, you know, you're bringing back some other memories from back in Tucson. Tucson, we used to do blog talk radio.
Blog talk. Oh, yeah.
My gosh,
Yeah.
You know, you think about how much technology has advanced
Yeah.
in recent years. The speed has been lightning fast. Right, 10 years ago it was blog talk radio. When I first moved to Port St. Lucie, it was blog talk radio. That was the big digital.
You don't even hear about blogs anymore.
No, they're
You
kind
know.
of fading. I've got a few out there, and no, they're not doing a whole lot. You know, sometimes what people will do is they'll post them on a website as a way of getting hits.
Mm-hmm.
And but you don't see them on. WordPress is mostly hosting websites now, rather than just blogs.
Sure.
And the whole frame of the system has
Blog
changed.
talk radio. Wow, I
Yeah.
haven't heard. I haven't heard that term in a long time.
And when we did that, we actually had people all over the world listening to that as well.
yes,
because they could.
Yeah. Well, that's where TuneIn has changed everything for us. It's it's almost scary when you start, especially if you get emails from various countries. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. We're definitely becoming a much smaller planet, and we're learning more and more about each other's cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So, yeah.
Yet the crazy stuff in like war zones and stuff just continues to pile up, and you just think, why
Yeah.
in the world does this stuff happen?
Because somebody profits from it.
Ooh. Here you go again. Follow the money.
Follow the money. Most things are done because somebody profits either in cash or in power or in resources, in something that's going to benefit them or a very small group of them or one individual. Yeah. And then some people just go off the wall. So let me shift this discussion. I want to dedicate this to folks who are in need of healing today. I was thinking about it on the way in. Here we are. It's June of the second year of almost third year of the pandemic, right? Because now we know that there were cases before
2019.
December. Right. So, yeah, there were cases in 2019. We don't know how widespread. We probably won't know for a long time. Some people have a better idea than we do, but, it'll come out someday.
All I know, when I was with the basketball team, not this year, but last year, I had flu that I had never had experienced before. Now, I have no idea what it was, but it was bad stuff.
Yeah. And there was a rash of a bug that went around. So here's a flashback to Gentry in the song Tallahatchie. Right, there's a line in there that says there was a virus going around. Papa caught it and he died last spring.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right. So again, pandemics are not new, and yeah.
When was that song written? 50s, 60s?
I want to say 60s.
60s, yeah. Bobby Gentry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was June 3rd was part of the lyrics, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
wow.
a shout out to her, because she wrote about things that inspired her. It's amazing. Some amazing songs.
That was a different era in songs, because there were some really thought pieces out there.
Yeah, there wasn't as much formula as there was thought.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We've gotten down into a kind of a formulaic way of living, and that's in some ways a little bit scary. It's a little bit of hive think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hive.
Yeah, well,
okay.
I was. So here's the random Shafirisms. Okay,
Yeah.
the random thoughts.
There you go.
And I saw a raccoon yesterday going down into the ditch behind the house, and there were a couple of rabbits out in people's yards, and this and that. And I really thought about how sparse life really is. Thought about the desert out in Tucson and how much of it doesn't have life touching it for long, long periods of time. Because animals and humans are animals, and we move around, and a lot of animals are loners or small groups, very small groups, to maximize food availability, etc. And I looked at humans, and we are hive animals, if you will, because we build these cities.
Sure.
Right, so if we step back out and look at it from the satellite, you can see that we cluster. Part of this is connected to having taken out a fire ant nest this morning, but and I was thinking about that. The similarities are kind of amazing. We build mostly up; they build mostly down.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. The way, of course, that I knew that they were there was that they had built up several inches.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, well, and I moved the flower pot that was sitting in that, and
Oh boy.
angered a bunch of them.
Hopefully the dog doesn't get in it.
No, the dogs have actually gotten pretty smart about fire ants, I think.
Good.
A couple of bites, and they do learn. And, yeah. Animals.
Unlike some humans.
Okay, so now let's go to the main topic that I really wanted to talk about. 15 minutes in here on Digital 1590. And it is about how to help people, babies, and older people, us adults, to have the mental stimulation and acuity that we need. And let's start with infants. If you've got a baby and the only thing the baby does is lay in the crib on its back, staring up at the ceiling, or on its side staring at the wall, on its tummy staring at the wall, there's not a whole lot of stimulation there. There's not much to help the brain develop.
Yeah, that's why you get the
mobiles.
Mobiles,
And you get little toys that rattles and things.
Sure.
So that the kid can start to experience life and become stimulated by things. And science has shown that the more stimulation we give a child, healthy stimulation, not shock treatments or WAPs or anything like that, but but real stimulation, the smarter that child will be. The faster and better that brain develops. It was oh gosh, now we're going to talk about 17 lifetimes ago, back when I was very, very first starting grad school and doing some research at the University of Pittsburgh, to talk about an ancient time. I don't talk about that one very much. But I used to do some research. There was a daycare preschool attached to the university, mostly for parents to be able to drop their kids off and teach or work or whatever. It served as a daycare, childcare kind of facility, but it also was set up on a preschool system.
Yeah, University of Arizona had one for students and
a lot
faculty
of,
and stuff. Yeah, you bet.
A lot of places did. Now, I will confess that back in the day, we used to call them our lab rats, but right, because this was about developmental psychology, and I did a number of tests based and Cher just joined, and she'll love this one too, based on Piaget's system of the advancement of development of concepts in children. And one of his premises was that you couldn't advance to the higher stages unless you went through the lower ones. So that, and one of the tests that we used to administer is that I had I had made them out of what was very expensive back then, laminating. My whole project would be pennies today, but it was dollars back then.
Sure, obviously.
And it was some fairly large shapes, and excuse me, and it was stars and circles and squares, and it was shapes, and they were in colors. I think there were 36 of them in 6 colors. 6 colors, 6 shapes. And I would lay them out on the table in front of the child and say, please put these into 6 piles. And it was interesting to see which children did it by color and which children did it by shapes.
I would pick out the blue. As I'll bet a lot of the boys would have for some reason.
Boys tend to develop a little more slowly at that age and get a little more frustrated.
Carol will tell you the development is still going on.
I understand. And we're going to get to that soon. Okay. And it was interesting to watch. And the other thing that I would do, which is the conservation of volume, if I take a fat cup and pour it into a tall skinny cup, it's higher, of course, in the skinny cup. And what I used to do there is I had a little measuring cup, and I'd pour, two equal amounts of water and ask them to pour them into a fat cup that was short and into a tall skinny cup, and ask them if the two cylinders had the same amount of water.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, and that tells you the conservation of volume, right, which Sharon is saying, the beginning of executive function, and she's exactly right. How we make decisions and how we incorporate data and information in making our decisions. And here's the piece that I'm going to get to. The kids coming from lower socioeconomic homes, and you could kind of tell from a couple of different ways. We asked them some questions, too, that helped us define that. Demographics, where do you live, and stuff like that. We also could look up their addresses from the school database. And the kids that came from the poorer areas were far behind, even by age 5 and 6.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Far behind those that came from wealthier homes.
Sure.
And, and we realize that part of that's that kids growing up in wealthier homes are likely to have more stimulation. Not guaranteed. Not guaranteed.
But likely, though.
But much more likely to have more stimulation.
Yeah,
Changing environments, more colorful, more active mobiles, toys, etc. And as I've pointed out other times, it really is important. Moms, please listen to me. You need to give your kids 3D toys to play with. They've got to work with the little plastic or wood blocks. Best toy on the planet. Set of erector sets, those different wood shapes that we used to play with. All those things that help build eye-hand coordination. Because if you're just a screen kid, you don't understand the world. You're not exposed to it. You don't understand how the third dimension works.
And it's so easy just to flop a kid in front of a screen and say, okay,
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It's amazing.
It's so essential for development. So now let's fast forward. Okay, let's look at people your age and mine. Okay, or, well, okay, let's back up a minute.
You're still a kid.
I understand that. Oh, and I have to tell you a funny story about that one. I'll tell you that later. Remind me that later,
Okay.
please. But let's talk about the development of your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the piece associated with executive function, with the ability to measure data, to make sound decisions. And that is not fully formed until you're into your mid-20s. It just isn't. There's a big, that's why when a teenager or a preteen looks at you and said, oh, it sounded like a great idea, it was to them because they don't have a prefrontal cortex to really measure it against. And they're in that period where they still need to rely on parental or adult guidance in their decision making, but they don't want to because they're starting to have their own identity. And it's no question that that's why the Jewish bar and bat mitzvah celebration is around 12 and 13. It's a very wise time because they're starting to cut loose. Wow. Now, in reality, the control stops when you cut the umbilical cord, but that's the tail end of it. And after that, it's your best bet. But it doesn't really develop. And that's why insurance companies, they know it because of accidents and other things that are evidence of poor judgment. Right? There's the old saw that, judgment comes from experience, but experience comes from bad judgment. So we learn from our mistakes. We learn from the things that stimulate us. We learn from the things that help us grow. And those are challenges. If we make everything too easy for people, then we cheat them. There's an old website that's out there, that's been out there. Wow, I want to say that I put it up in maybe 1997, 98, 99, somewhere in there, late 1990s. Computers were, and the site is fairly primitive. It's hosted on Homestead, one of the early website hosting.
Never even heard of that one.
Homestead.com. They host some great, now it's homesteadcloud.com, but then it was homestead.com.
Huh.
And it's called The Butterfly Story. And what it explains is that when a butterfly emerges from the chrysalis, it has to struggle. If it doesn't struggle out of a very, very tiny hole to birth itself as it transforms, it will be crippled. In the story, somebody's watching the butterfly struggle, and they snip the chrysalis to make it easier. And what happens is the butterfly falls to the ground, and it's crippled. It'll never fly.
Oh.
Because the struggle coming out of the chrysalis is what forces the fluids into the tips of the wings and shapes the body. That's a development process that nature has honed over millennia. And that struggle to come out of the chrysalis, and it's not a cocoon, folks. Moths spin a cocoon. They spin, but the chrysalis emerges from the butterfly. It's a different system. Moths and butterflies look similar, but they have slightly different metamorphosis.
Okay.
And they're not the only ones that larva and cocoon and or chrysalis or pupa. The scientific term is pupa. They have a pupa state. And that's, I see that in beetles, right? There's a little larva, and then there's what we call aliens, and then the beetle emerges. So lots of insects go through those stages.
Huh.
So when the butterfly emerges from the chrysalis, the struggle is what makes it a real butterfly. And if the chrysalis cracks because of some chemical imbalance, the butterfly will not be formed properly. And if you break open the chrysalis early, it'll look kind of like a yolky thing. It's just mucky color. It's kind of brown on the inside. It's an egg, if you will. And the butterfly has to form inside and then emerge, just as a chick does inside that egg.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, the system changes, but not a lot.
Yes.
Until we,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at the shape of a human embryo, you will see that in the very early stages, it definitely resembles the reptile shape until the front part of the brain starts to form.
Mm.
It's interesting to look at the development of embryos.
That's fascinating.
So, so all of this stuff helps people develop. And as we get older, right, so exposure to good things, to educational stimulation, is what's going to help teenagers and young adults become the smartest, best humans that they can be. And we know that, for example, exposure to porn short circuits the brain in ways that are not healthy. Very important to help young people have healthy connections, to not objectify people and understand how human interaction really works. It's important to do that. As we get older, as we get into our second, third trimesters of life, if you will, it's still important to really stimulate. And stimulate doesn't mean sitting in front of the TV. Yes, there are some interesting shows. There are certainly some educational shows that are out there. There are even occasionally challenging shows. And it's not bad to enjoy, a Grey's Anatomy or a NCIS or, I don't know, whatever is your relaxation TV. I'm not saying don't do that. But I'm also saying do something that actually forces you to think and ponder and use the gray matter between your ears.
Let's make a deal. Oh, sorry.
Something more than that, please. Let's make a deal. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of relaxation, but you shouldn't have 12 hours of relaxation a day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
No,
so
that makes sense.
Look at your schedule. Be realistic. Put something in there every day. Every day. Crossword puzzles are good. The word games on the phone or your tablet, those are good. Something that forces you to stop for a second and not just have an automatic answer. Because here's the rub, it's only when we're not giving automatic answers that we are learning and exercising our brains. And you can tell when somebody has not had that part of their brain stimulated by the way they really have to struggle to form an answer to a question. That's a clue that there hasn't been enough think exercising going on. Can you change that? Absolutely. You can. So if somebody is feeling, say, fuzzy as they get older, you can change that by starting to do some of those things. You can clear away the fog, if you will, by starting to do some learning. Let me back up and explain a little bit of why that is and why that works. And then I'm going to take, if I have time, a little bit of a left turn into some funny things that Judaism, for example, really does to help people think about things. So you have two parts in your brain. You have the part that's the automatic answer. It's the one that just looks at something and gives you a quick answer. Yes, no, black, blue, red, green, whatever. That has very fast answers for things. And an example of the fast part of your brain giving you a wrong answer is the one that I've given you before. The bat and the ball. The bat costs $1 more than the ball, and the bat and ball are $1.10. How much does the bat cost?
Oh, here we go. That's the one you stumped me on last time.
Yeah, and what's the answer?
Ball.
No. Nice try. Okay, I'll give that one again. The bat is $1 more than the ball.
Yeah.
And the bat and ball together are $1.10. How much is the bat?
It's $1.
It's $1.05.
Forgot tax.
It has nothing to do with tax. It has to do with the way your brain processes language.
Oh.
The bat is $1 more than the ball.
Gotcha.
The bat and ball together are $1.10. If the ball was 10 cents and then the bat would have to be $1.10. So you have to take the $1 away and half the difference, which is the 10 cents. So the bat is $1.05 and the ball is $5.
That's why Carol works on the books.
But that's a very common, something like 85 to 90% of the population will give the wrong answer to that question, phrased the exact way that I did. And that's not tricky. That's really not a tricky, it's not a tricky question. But because of the way that the speed part of our brain works, we tend to give the wrong answer. Here's an interesting piece. They put that in a math test. It's an easy question to throw into a math test for students. And if they just typed it in and gave the answers the way that I just did, 85 to 90% of the students will answer it wrong. If they change the font and color of the ink so that it's difficult to read, only about 10 to 15% give the wrong answer.
Ooh.
Why? Because the change in color and font forces you to use the other part of your brain to read it.
That makes sense.
Right? Because you can't automatically.
Sure.
We're used to, Calibri or Times Roman or one of the standard fonts that are quote unquote easy to read, and we're used to black print on white. So if you make it harder to read, you force your thinking part of your brain to work, and then you're engaged and much more likely to come up with the right answer. And unfortunately, advertising and things like that, and certainly some of the National Enquirer, are not intended to make you think. They're intended to engage the automatic response and make you feel good about your decisions. That's not making you think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, sales or advertising is about selling. It's not about you thinking and logically weighing whether or not a pink Corvette drives faster than a yellow one. It doesn't. Right? But, if emotions didn't matter, we wouldn't have colors to cars.
That's interesting, yeah.
Okay, so...
And then break down who buys what color.
Then that gets to be fun. So
I'll bet it does.
So a number of different things. One of the Sharon just said reading mystery novels. That is a really good way to get your brain to think about it. Actually, reading just about anything that involves a little bit of thinking is helpful. Reading is one of the first things to fall away from people when they stop being able to read. That's a clue that they really haven't been doing some deep reading. And it is important to do things, not just to pretend and look at the pictures, but to actually dig down and start to work and develop some of the cognitive skills. And you can resharpen those. Just as many of us, myself absolutely included, coming out of COVID, out of being home so much and doing so much of the work at my computer, the number of steps I take in a day, the amount of physical activity I've done, not very good. And I started doing some exercises intended to build flexibility and tone back in to this body that used to be, although heavy, much more in shape than it is right now. And I'm trying to do more and more.
And I think we're all in that boat.
We're all in that boat.
Yeah.
So the same thing as you do physically, right? There are physical things that you can do. When I realized how stiff I had become, I could only do, maybe 3 or 4 deep knee bends, and now I'm back up into good numbers. And that's just a function of doing it. You don't jump from 0 to 90 mile an hour in 60 seconds unless you're a sports car or an aircraft. It's just,
Sure, I get it.
And even those only do it when they're tuned. And so we need to continue to tune our bodies. We need to continue to get better. And I don't care where you are right now. If you work at it, You can make improvement. You can, it's one of the reasons. It was a kind of an interesting thing. When I first arrived in Port St. Lucie, I actually started to do something that I had wanted to do, which was to work on the PhD. I really, really wanted that, and I truly felt a fog lifting as I started to do the classwork.
Well, and that didn't take you long to get that PhD either.
Fortunately, I enjoy learning, so that has an influence on it. I remember some of my flight students saying to me when we would get done with a lesson, they would look at me and they say, you actually make my head hurt. I have to work it so hard. And so the key on that, making people think when you are their teacher, is not to be mean to them, but to actually try to bring that gray matter into physical fitness, into mental fitness. We need to stimulate our brains. We need to be an active participant in the stimulation of our brains. Again, they take people who are injured in accidents and they teach them how to do things again. Gabby Giffords learning to speak again because the language center was impaired by the bullet. Now, I'm not saying any of those are easy or fast. But it takes work. And it also takes taking care of your body, something that, I'm far from perfect. This is not the saint preaching to the world. This is somebody in and part of the same struggle. These are things that we can have an influence on. Will everybody be 100% successful? No. Yeah. But everybody will benefit from some effort of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
And, it's... As one of my trainers when I was working out in the gym used to say, it's not about living longer, but it's about living life as you live. Right? It's about doing what you can to keep yourself feeling as good as you can, as vital as you can. And those are absolutely things that have to come out of you. You have to want to do that. But if you want to have as full a life, as mentally active a life as you can, then you have some input in that. And input into that is doing things that challenge you, not going away from them. I've got a student right now who's like, why do they bother having Hebrew for bar and bat mitzvah? Well, because learning another language is very useful for your brain. It just is. We know that people that speak multiple languages use more of their brain in making decisions and theoretically make better decisions, or at least more informed decisions.
Theoretically.
Well, and there's always some element of luck in a decision as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, because you don't control the rest of the world. I'm going to point out that this poor little guy really doesn't like the air conditioning here. Look at it closing down. I just happened to notice that. Yeah, this little guy wants to get outside.
He wants to get out in the sun.
Yeah, he wants to get out in the sun. So, and that's another thing. Okay, that's a great segue for that. We benefit from sunlight. We benefit from being outside. We get vitamins from the sun. We get a number of different things that our body does in response to being in the sunlight.
Yeah, you feel better even if it's just like a half-hour walk or something like that.
Now, I'm not saying be out long enough to get skin cancer.
Yeah, you don't have to get fried.
Yeah, you don't need to get fried, but get a little bit of sun. If you like the beach, go to a little bit of the beach. Go to a park. Even during the shutdown, you could go outside. Right? One of the best things that I did during the shutdown was to go out into my backyard and just enjoy the bird sounds that were out there, the rustling of the leaves in the trees, and I learned to enjoy mangoes, of course.
By the way, thank you so much. We had those last weekend. They were wonderful.
There will be more coming.
Oh, my goodness. Those were awesome.
The tree is full.
Oh, no. Here we go.
So, yeah.
The life cycle continues.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, so Cher's saying Arizona's too hot. And I get that. But, even in Arizona, you can go out for a few minutes and get some sunshine.
Sharon needs to move here.
Good luck. She's an Arizonan through and through.
Yeah, well, I can understand that too.
Yeah.
And part of me is still there. Believe me. It's amazing.
There are definitely big parts of Arizona that I miss. And, we have been talking, my husband and I and some of our friends, about doing a road trip out to Arizona.
We've talked about that. Yeah. One of my former interns is a VP at University of Arizona now. And, yeah, I've thought about going out and visiting him.
So, that's a stimulation thing you can do. Mm-hmm. Take a train ride across the country.
A friend of ours who used to produce nightly news for NBC became an Episcopal priest. But he's a train nut.
Yeah.
And has sent back great stories, on various train rides around the country.
Oh, there's all kinds of wonderful things that you can do along those ways. Anything that helps you learn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we have John on line 1. Thank you for calling, John.
Oh, you're welcome, Rabbi. Good morning. I had a question. I'm not an expert on the Bible, especially the Old Testament, but I've been reading through it this year.
Okay.
And especially in Psalms, I don't believe, I thought I saw it somewhere else in the Old Testament, but in Psalms especially, there's that word where you always get a footnote, and it says, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, Selah?
Selah.
Or Selah?
Selah.
Okay.
Usually that's how the Hebrew is pronounced, Selah.
Okay, I'm glad you
Odie
said
hallelujah.
that,
Selah.
I know how to say it.
Yeah.
Selah.
So what is that word?
Car.
Huh?
So what does that word mean? Because it seems like it's a big mystery. Nobody seems to know exactly what that means.
It appears most. So the question is, what is Selah? For those who don't hear your phone, your question, John, I'm repeating it for the folks on Facebook. And the question is, what is Selah? Particularly in Psalms, it's used in Psalms. Psalms, of course, are musical prayers. They would have been sung. The Levites would have been playing the music behind the words. And Selah, think of it as a clash of cymbals. Okay. Selah, boom, boom. Yeah, ta-da. It's like an exclamation point.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
So
interesting.
it's more to help in the musical department than any meaning.
Yeah, it's like hurrah, right? Hurrah doesn't really mean anything. It's the use of amen at the end of prayers doesn't really come in biblical days. They don't say amen. They're much more likely to have said Baruch Shem Baruch, that phrase. Right, blessed is the holy name from God's place. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, which was, according to some scholars, the phrase that was used in the temple and in the Mishkan when they were wandering. So, Amen comes in. Amen can be understood as El Maleh Rachaman, the one who is. El Melech Ne'eman. My mind is cottage cheese for me today. And a faithful, God is faithful. So amen is kind of like a booster rocket that you put on somebody else's prayer. You don't say amen to your own prayer. You say it to somebody else's prayer. And Jewishly, it's considered a mitzvah if you hear somebody saying a prayer to say amen to their prayer. Because
So an agreement with, so to say?
It can be an agreement to, or it can just be an acknowledgement, but it's like a booster rocket on the prayer. May it do what it's supposed to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Because a lot of...
Yeah.
I have about a dozen Bibles, different types of Bibles, and they all have the footnotes. And in this one particular Bible, it kept saying, after Selah, it kept saying a Hebrew word that is not fully understood. So that's why I figured I'd ask the rabbi. It was a Baptist Bible, so I'm not surprised.
No comments there, John.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that info today.
You're quite welcome. Thank you so much for calling. So
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and go have a casserole now that he's read his Baptist Bible. I'm sorry.
Can we, every tradition has its traditions and its questions, and we all live on one planet with one creator God. We are all one race. Yeah,
I wish more people would listen to you on that.
And I keep saying it. I live by two things. That's one, right? And for the Christians that are listening, and that's what Jesus said, quoting that. Right? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Listen up, O Israel. Adonai is God, and Adonai is one. Adonai was the eternal, the one that always has been, is one God. If you believe that you live in one universe, and I understand the idea of multiple parallel universes, but it's still one something, even if you go beyond to the thing that contains all the multiple universes. If that system is one, and one being or one entity or one something created it, there can only be one. Somebody can't have another creator God, because we all live on Earth. So at the very least for us, on Earth, there is one God. There's one something that created this system. And whether it's an accidental spark of energy, it doesn't really matter. There's one. And the question then becomes how interactive, how conscious, how much can you relate to that oneness? And some can do it more and some can do it less. That's one of my premises, and the other one that I live by is God doesn't make junk.
You might get a little pushback from some of the scientists who are Big Bang Theory types.
There's nothing in Scripture that violates the Big Bang concept, other than the fact that in order to be a bang, one has to have ears to hear the bang. And since there's not planets or suns or moons, in the first milliseconds or nano, whatever the smallest unit of time can be that we've got at this point of creation or of the Big Bang, what kicked off the Big Bang? If we define God as the thing, the entity, the eternalness that kicked off the Big Bang. Right? So Jewish, particularly mysticism, says that in the beginning, everything was in the beginning before the beginning of Scriptures.
Okay. Yes.
In the time before the in the beginning that starts Scriptures, there was homogeneous godness. Right? Everything was the one that is eternal, that has no end. The thing that was before our universe. Right. And at the point of creation, what that homogeneous isness did was to contract itself to create a space within it that wasn't going to be homogenized, so creation could occur. And the divine energy is energy. Right? Blessings are poured into that cauldron that isness created within itself in order to have life as we know it. So there's no violation between the Big Bang and that pouring of energy into the cauldron. And cauldron I'm using just because I don't have a good term for the Hebrew word is tzimtzum, God's contraction of God's self, in order to create a place, not that's godless, but that's less God, that's not homogeneous, that's not uniformly light, bright, goodness, etc., so that we can perceive good and evil, so that we can perceive light and darkness, right? And the first thing that happens is that there is a separation between light and dark. Vayhi, or let there be light. Let the light collect and create a place that's less light. And to the bright part, God says day. and to the dark part. Darkness, right? Light and darkness. And that's the first whatever period of time you measure before you have sun, moon, and stars. That is a day. We don't have sun, moon, and stars until Tuesday, so it's kind of hard to really measure a 24-hour day before you have all the pieces that we use to measure a year.
Yeah, how long is 24 hours? Don't go there.
It's an absolutely arbitrary thing. Thank you, Sumerians, for the system of 12 and 360, and measuring degrees and minutes and seconds. It was a great system. We still use it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's why we have 12 inches in a foot. And the rest of the world's gone to 10 because we've got 10 fingers and 10 toes on which to count.
Yeah. Yeah, but, we never did adapt that meter system that Europe has.
We never have, and it does make us stick out, but that's okay.
It does.
Yeah. And I love the people who say if God had wanted us to fly, God would have given us wings. And if God had wanted you to live in houses, God would have built them. Right? So we can take this all the way back. So go move into the outback, go move out into the wilderness and live on nature. And then you're living the way perhaps God intended you to, unless you're going to use the gray matter that God gave you to.
I need you to put your Snoopy hat on now.
My Snoopy hat?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Did you happen to see the news yesterday? Boom.
The Boom.
The Boom is a brand new airplane it's supersonic, but no noise like the old
can slide
the
in
old
with
British plane.
Yeah, well,
like the
right.
Concorde.
So the noise, right, of going supersonic, going faster than sound. Super is faster, sonic is sound, faster than sound, is the bow wave, if you will, coming off the front of the aircraft. When it jams up against itself, that's what creates the boom. So, just as some ships have greater wakes than others,
Yeah.
same principle. Water is a fluid, air is a fluid. Right. So if you've got something that's going to penetrate it without creating that big shock wave in front, then you're going to be quieter.
Yeah, well, the aircraft company said that it's a material that has never been used in planes before, and the test pilot says no one on board will feel
The buffet.
Yeah, and no one below will hear
it.
It sounds amazing to me because the Concorde was limited, I think, to what, L.A. and New York.
Yeah.
Simply because of the noise.
Yeah.
But if that goes away,
There'll be faster travel.
yeah,
The world will get smaller.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's $5,000, which basically what they were saying is like first class anyway. So, yeah, can you imagine flying to London in 2.5 hours?
It brings the world closer.
Yeah, it does.
So we're getting faster and faster, and at the same time, we've still got more and more ways to conference and to meet with each other on Facebook and on Zoom and on all of these different media that bring us together. So as we wrap this crazy session up, please do yourself a favor, stimulate your brain matter, do some physical exercises, get some sunshine, make yourself healthy, because it's important. It just is. So our last, I'm going to do the couple of PSAs for the congregation here. We are having our very first potluck dinner for those who are vaccinated.
Cool.
Before services.
When is this going to be?
That's tonight.
Oh, okay.
At 6:30,
All right.
and then at 7:30 we have our regular services. And then we do our third Friday, again on third Friday. So we're starting to do a few more activities. We've got the plant sale on the 27th and 28th at the Temple, and that's on 540 University Boulevard, Suite 102, 540 Northwest University Boulevard. Gotta say the address right. That's across from Met Stadium, and that was kind of funny. I was on an international Zoom call yesterday, And I said something about Port St. Lucie, and somebody said Met Stadium. Met spring training. So we're on the map. But we're and I chuckled and I said our congregation's right across the street from that stadium. We're in the Blue Buildings Park office complex. We're the front building. So services are at 7:30, and then there's a Shabbat morning services as well. We've got the special third
in
front.
person.
Yep, in person.
Cool.
And and if you're, we'll ask you if you're vaccinated, folks. So as you walk in the door, so that we can.
There's no excuse not to be now. I mean, the vaccinations are all over the place. So
I would agree with that. And, not that the vaccine makes it perfect. There are still very occasional breakthroughs, not many. And who knows all the reasons. We'll sort through all of that. But much lower risk, and that's important. It's really important for people. So we're slowly starting to come out. We're going to start to do some open-air activities. And we still ask everybody, please wash your hands. Please, if you are feeling sick, don't share. You just don't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we wish everybody healing, absolutely, who's out there and needs some healing. So here's my PSA for me. If you'd like to sponsor an episode of Ask a Rabbi, please contact the radio station. You can call them at 772-340-1590, even after the show, and they'll be glad to work with you to help sponsor and Ask the Rabbi, and then I will mention you.
Sounds good.
So, all those things coming up. And, everybody, please do stay safe, take care of yourself, and as today was also mentally as well as physically, there are things that you can do, even in shutdown. There are still things to do. It was easy to fall back and not do anything for a while. And I know that I fell into that little trap myself, although I still continued teaching online and all of that. But the more you do that way, the more important it is to keep yourself healthy and to be an active participant in your own health. Because you can.
Mm-hmm. And I think as far as your college instruction?
IRSC, we're
in person?
Actually, next semester, which starts in a couple of weeks, Spring B, or Summer B, my mouth is not working, is a hybrid class on Pruitt campus. This semester, Summer A, is online, and we're just about wrapping that one up.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
You are so
busy. The clock keeps moving.
Yep, but tonight
we've got services at 7:30 at 540 Northwest University Boulevard, Suite 102, right next to the elevator's middle of the front building. So please join us there, or join us on Facebook Live, because we stream every service, have for years, not just for COVID. So thank you so much. This has been Rabbi Shafir Loeb, and this has been Ask a Rabbi.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. Talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world.